Hey guys. All right. So this is the second part and probably the final part of the tribal epistemology discussion, which is roughly what I restructured the entire back third of my class to talk about. So hopefully it'll have been worth it. So we've talked about vaccinations and the anti-vax movement. Now I want to talk about something that's a little current. And I recorded this April 16th, 2020. And all of the data is current as of 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Pacific time today. So we'll get into that. Okay, this is the chart that I've put up before about how infective diseases can be, how deadly they are, how long they last, whether there's any asymptomatic spread, and the incubation period, right? So it would be bad if a disease had a high R0 value, that is, it was super infective. A 2 or a 3 is it's a pretty high number. It means that, after one day it's 2 people or 3 people. After another day it's 4 or 9, and it can spread exponentially after that. Deadliness, going from 1 in 200 to 1 in 20, that's a pretty big range, and I think that this range fundamentally depends on how overwhelmed the system gets. The virus by itself would probably be toward the bottom end of that range if we had an infinite healthcare system. But because this is a disease from which we have no natural immunities, it tends to congest emergency rooms and healthcare resources when it hits. And so as a result, a lot more people die from it. The people that have this disease can be sick from anywhere from 1 to about 6 weeks, especially people whose prognosis isn't good, people that end up dying. They get intubated at, after a couple of weeks, 4-ish weeks, and sometimes they kick around for a little bit longer. About 50% of the people that are intubated die, which is unfortunate. The big problem with COVID-19 is the asymptomatic spread. So a lot of people that don't realize that they're sick are still infecting other people for several days while they don't feel sick at all. It might be related to this incubation period. I think there's viruses that have incubation periods where they don't spread, and then this one seems to spread when people are not yet aware that they're sick. But it takes a while for people to get sick, so-called sick. Okay, so here are 2 charts shown in 2 different ways. On the left is confirmed cases. On the right is confirmed deaths from COVID-19. These are current as of right now. And so you can see that the 2 charts show the same information, but one of them is a logarithmic chart. So it compresses all of the small variation and makes everything look more comparable. The bottom chart is linear. That is, 700,000 is 7 times more represented on this chart than 100,000, as opposed to just a little bit more in the top charts. So the United States has taken the lead on all of these, for better or worse. We started off being very bad about diagnosing the disease. We didn't have the tests, and the tests that we did have weren't good for a while, but we've picked up steam, and now we're above average in terms of testing people. Some people think that both charts on the left are worthless because countries differ radically with respect to how much they are testing. And so the fact that a country may be lower on in the chart just is evidence that they haven't been testing enough. The same, by parity of reasoning, the same sort of thing could apply to the charts on the right. People die. Sometimes it's obvious that it's from COVID-19, but sometimes they die from related issues, and it's unclear whether we've captured all of the deaths from this disease. So it's both unclear if we've captured the number of cases and the number of deaths. Either way, the United States has taken the lead worldwide in terms of cases and deaths. Within the United States, the epicenter is New York. In fact, worldwide, the epicenter of the disease is now New York, with considerable amount of spillover to New Jersey. There's other states that have been doing fairly poorly: Michigan, Massachusetts, let's see, Louisiana. A lot of people have been expecting Florida to jump up, but it still hasn't. Washington had an early outbreak. California had some early outbreaks. They've managed to keep them fairly controlled, so they aren't at the top of any of these charts anymore, except for in terms of how many days it's been since the confirmed cases. So, of course, these charts on the x-axis are showing days since either 20 cases or 5 deaths, to sort of set the same starting baseline for every state, the same as we did with the previous charts. And on the y-axis, it's either a linear or a logarithmic scale that tries to show how many cases or deaths there have been at those particular temporal benchmarks. When we zoom into Nevada a little bit more, we can see that Clark County seems to have decreased its growth rate a fair bit. In the past week, the number of cases have grown by 36%, which seems bad, but it's better than some of the other areas. Carson City, 92%. Small numbers make it hard to be very confident with this, but with any exponential growth, small numbers become big numbers very quickly. Washoe has seen a 68% growth in number of cases over the past week. And when we look at deaths, deaths are an extremely backward-looking indicator. That is to say that if cases tells us what happened last week, deaths will tell us what was going on in the state last month. So Washoe had 133% increase in the past week. It's an accelerating trajectory, but that's essentially because a month ago we weren't taking it as seriously as, say, Clark. We're expecting the rural parts of the country, not necessarily Nevada, but the rural parts of the country are going to start seeing their cases skyrocket. It just happened it was expected that cities would get hit first, and the bigger cities that are more ports of entry were likely to get hit earliest and hardest. Okay. So now we're going to talk about how this has been perceived. This is data from a couple of weeks ago showing that there's a pretty big partisan split here with whether we trust the information about coronavirus coming from Donald Trump, who Republicans somewhat trust, Democrats do not trust at all. The entire public, on average, trusts them somewhere in the 30% range. The media is somewhat trusted by Democrats, not trusted by Republicans, and about half the country trusted. Public health experts, more people trust in general across the board. When we look at the right chart, you can see that as time has grown forward, more people have become more concerned about coronavirus, but Democrats started off more concerned, and Republicans, self-identified Republicans, at the extreme, have only really caught up to where Democrats started at the end of February, which shows an interesting split. But when you look more forward in time, you see that this um, the partisan split completely disappears. As we see, it used to be that Democrat parts of the country were more interested in finding hand sanitizer and other health prophylactics, whereas Republican parts of the country were not. But now, basically, everybody is on the same page. And so we might see the partisan split disappear moving forward. Remember, at the beginning of this crisis, the Trump administration downplayed it and said that it wasn't real. And so it makes sense that when Trump has changed his position, so too would Trump's allies. That's a bit of a lagging indicator. It seemed Trump admitted that it was a serious issue March 13th. And I guess parts of the country has started catching up since then. I want to talk about conspiracy theories. We've talked about how this has affected cities more than non-cities, and by accident of history, cities tend to be more Democratic than Republican. So as a result, or maybe relatedly, Democrats take it more seriously than Republicans do. And I don't mean to slide from here to suggest that conspiracy theories are partisan in nature, but I do think that they reveal something that is of interest, that there's a family resemblance here between partisan divide and conspiracy divide. And so maybe I'll just go through these very quickly and then talk about them more broadly. So one of the ones that I heard recently is that the 5G cell phone signals are the secret cause of coronavirus. Maybe it's destabilized nature or something. I can't even get my head into that. That's just, it doesn't reflect any data that we've seen. It's not a serious view, and no serious person should take it seriously, except for the fact that other people have been taking it seriously. So you have to sort of deal with numbers there. Lower viral load equals less sick. People have been sharing this on Facebook and WhatsApp and various other social media. Biology doesn't work like that. If you get a single virion particle and it happens to infect one of your cells, that is enough. If you get 1,000, you might get sick slightly more quickly, but no, biology it grows exponentially. This is like, as a planet, we need to get more comfortable with exponents. When you get infected, that's what happens. You get sick, and you will get as sick as if you had lots of viruses hit you all at once, because it's the exponential increase that your body doesn't see that's the problem. Ibuprofen exacerbates the coronavirus, right? So don't take Advil, take Tylenol. It turned out that wasn't corroborated. It's not really corroborated by any science. That was an interesting one because I saw very educated people pushing this for a good while. And even I didn't have any reason to doubt it until I found out that the WHO and the Lancet and other places had withdrawn their support from this. Coronavirus can be cured by vitamin C, bleach, high pH food. Holy shit, do not do this. That is stupid. That is super stupid and dumb. Oh my God, you will hurt yourself and others. It cannot be cured like this. I mean, by all means, eat right and have nutrition, but trust public health experts when they say, liquids, bed rest, medical attention. There's no shortcuts in life, at least not in this case. It was a biological weapon. In China, they accuse the CIA. In the United States, we accuse the Chinese government. A third of Americans believe this. There's not any good evidence biologically. There's not any good practical evidence that this is a biological weapon. It doesn't make much sense, but, you know, a third of Americans believe this. I'm not sure how damaging this is, except that it externalizes the blame so that the people that ought to be held to account, either the American or the Chinese government or the WHO or whatnot, are not held to account because we're attributing it to some unknown malefactors elsewhere. The virus is just like the flu. That was a dominant argument for a while. I don't know if you've ever had the flu. You don't want the flu. The flu is really bad. People die from it. And this is at least 5 times as deadly and twice as infectious, and we don't have resistance to it, unlike the flu. These might seem like they're just nitpicking reasons for why it's not like the flu, but that's like saying that a Ferrari is like a go-kart. They're very, very different. And the differences that seem small to non-experts are big differences. Okay, I'm gonna record the next section as a separate video, and we'll talk about where to move from here.